This father killed his 5 very young children. They ranged in ages from 8 years old to only 1 year old. This is the monster Timothy Jones Jr. Timothy Jones Jr. was raised by his mother, his father, and his grandmother, and each of them separately had very traumatic childhoods. Timothy's grandmother, from a very young age, was SA'd by her stepfather. That alone is already horrific, but this abuse resulted in Timothy's grandmother getting pregnant by her stepfather when she was only 12 years old. At only 12 years old, she was forced to marry her stepfather. That baby that she had ended up being Timothy's father, and he was raised surrounded by chaos, abuse, and violence. And Timothy's mother was also SA'd by her dad when she was a child. Timothy's parents were only teenagers when they met, got married, and got pregnant with him. The cycle of abuse is sadly a very, very real thing, so Timothy also suffered in his childhood. Timothy's mom really struggled with motherhood. Whenever Timothy would cry as a baby, she would either completely neglect him or put him in freezing cold water. Allegedly, she was terrified of having a fat child, so when Timothy was a baby, she force-fed him laxatives. When Timothy was only 2 years old, his mom was diagnosed with schizophrenia and was hospitalized for 20 years. He was then raised by his dad and grandmother. Throughout his childhood, he witnessed a lot of dysfunction, substance abuse, and violence. Timothy also began to abuse substances, and at only 15 years old, Timothy was in a very serious car accident which left him with a traumatic brain injury, and allegedly afterwards he was never the same. He started committing crimes, like some really serious ones, like Grand Theft Auto, and was arrested at 19 years old. Once he was out of prison at 21 years old, he decided that he was going to turn his entire life around. He got very religious, he got a degree, he got a really good job making like $80,000 a year, and Timothy met his soon-to-be wife, Amber. And when I say soon, I mean soon. There was an instant spark. They were engaged 2 weeks after meeting each other and married after knowing each other for only 6 weeks. The couple had 3 kids like back to back to back, and everything seemed good for a little bit, but everything would quickly change. Timothy wanted like a trad wife, but a trad wife times 10. He had a list of very controlling and strict rules for his wife. He didn't want Amber to have any friends, have any contact with her family. He did not allow her to have a job. In his mind, his wife's only duties were to cook, clean, and make babies. And if she ever disobeyed him, he would physically abuse her. The cycle of abuse continues. In 2011, Timothy was reported to social services for the first of many times. The caseworker reported that Amber was being abused and that the children were being neglected and mistreated, but nothing was done and it would only get worse. Timothy and Amber had 2 more children, making it 5 very young children total. Timothy would threaten to kill his wife in front of his 5 very young children, and one day, Timothy nearly killed his wife and 5 children. Amber started having an affair, and when Timothy found out, he filed for divorce and vowed to take her children away from her. He didn't care about having custody of his kids. He didn't care about his kids, but he didn't want his wife to have them because he wanted to hurt her. Despite at this point already having multiple reports against him sent in to the Department of Social Services, Timothy was granted custody of the 5 children. Because Amber didn't have a job, and he did, but the only reason Amber didn't have a job was because Timothy wouldn't let her have a job. Without a wife to abuse and control, all of his focus was now on his 5 children and making their lives a living nightmare. The children had strict rules, they were beaten, they were starved, and if he ever fed his children, it was only ever oatmeal. The children were forced to exercise for long periods of time until the point where the young kids were practically collapsing from exhaustion.